And so if today is your day to read the calendar of the soul, if you haven't done it before, it's a really beautiful one. And I encourage you to volunteer.
Hazel, I can read it. But I worked through this one the other day and went through lots of the other books and came up with my own. Could I read that one? Or do you want it to be this one on the screen?
Of course. Oh, very
Okay.
good.
Okay. From the world's great womb arises the bliss of becoming, quickening the senses' brilliance. May it find my strength of thought fortified by divine forces that live strongly within me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I like to do that too. I like to create my own version. Fortified, much better than well-armed in our world environment right now. Thank you. That was a
yeah, I like the word brilliance. Brilliance too is one of the other translated words. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, we're really starting to feel the energy of the divine feminine, right? This world womb is really happening. And that makes a lot of sense. March is Women's History Month. And so, yeah, today I really wanted to bring something that's really special to my heart, something that I think is a long time coming. I think a lot of people give biographies of women when we look at women's history. But I think there's a lot of women that are misunderstood, and that happens a lot, powerful women. So next week on the 14th is Marie Steiner von Sivers' birthday. So I wanted to give a little shout out to her and talk about her today. And she was born on the 14th in 1867, and her family was this aristocratic family, and they came from a part of Russia that at that time, well, now is part of Poland. And her father, Jacob, was a very respected German-Danish. He came from this dynasty of people that lived in Russia for over 250 years, even though they had this German-Danish heritage. And so he had ties with the government in Latvia and Estonia, where they also lived for a time. So I got this little map up here to kind of show the part of the world, where we've been thinking a lot about the Ukraine these days. So I wanted to kind of give this picture of this individuality who was born in the Slavic heritage. So, and her mother was the daughter of a German doctor, and she was born and raised on the White Sea in northern Russia. So this interesting connection between these German families and Russia. So I just love this picture. This is Marie. She was a dainty, very petite child with golden blonde hair, and everybody always commented about her bright, sapphire blue eyes. And she was said to be very receptive to the inspirations of nature. And when Marie was 7, the family moved and were living by the Baltic Sea. So she had a lot of experiences that she talked about around the energies there, which we know was an ancient initiation center. And after her father retired, they went to live in St. Petersburg, and that's where they settled. So Marie attended a German private school, and the principal called her, quote, the young Schiller. So according to his report, she had a very uncanny sort of dexterous memory and a meticulous motivation of will for one so young. So I thought that was interesting. And she was said to have been very short-sighted. She didn't wear glasses, but she almost had this overly sensitive hearing. So she made up with her hearing. which of course later she put into practice in learning many, many languages. And at the age of 11, she started to recite poetry. So yeah, her family was a rather formal, they had a formal lifestyle, really this aristocratic custom, a little uptight, and they really only associated with other rich German families. So thinking was very conservative and full of prejudice. For instance, her parents would not allow her to be taught Greek. They thought that was beneath her somehow, and so she took it up and studied on her own. So here's a little birth chart. I don't know if anybody can get an impression from this. We're not going to go into that today, but yeah, so it's just interesting to think like she was really looking for something, and she could not find it in her family of origins. She had this quest for higher spiritual values. And so, even though they were very wealthy, life was difficult for her, and because there was a block to her being able to pursue these interests. When her father died, she was 15. And so here she is, she's becoming a teenager, and she's really starting to bump up against her mother. But at the age of 17, they start to travel. So this is something that she's always wanted to do. They travel to Berlin and Vienna and Switzerland, and this whole new world opens up for Marie. And so this begins this long 7-year cycle in which she's really, struggling to understand her destiny and her place in the world. So she actually joins the women's movement. She fights for women's right to education, because of course in her experience, she did not have that. And for the establishment of women's universities, which was very rare at that time. And she really cared about the social and hygienic improvements for the people, because a lot of people were living in poverty. And so she contributed, she was able to use her big money to contribute to school foundations and lots of charity events. And so this was her life, working with charities. And she also appeared as an actress and did a lot of stage plays. So after she graduated from this German school, her family would not allow her to study linguistics and comparative religions, which is what she wanted to do. So she actually had to fight to even get permission to obtain a teacher's diploma. But she got that. And afterwards, she taught at a school in St. Petersburg. And through that, she actually damaged her vocal cords and had to undergo surgery. So it made it difficult for her to speak for quite a while. And she really considered this to be a karmic event, forcing her to make speech, what she liked to call organ-free. And this was, how she laid the groundwork for her future speech work with Rudolf Steiner. So as her life in the family became harder, she decided at age 22 to go live with her brother, Jacob. Whoops. Lost my screen share there. There we go. So this is another interesting part of the world. She really wanted to work with what she called the simple people. And in her diary, she wrote, "Where can I find truth?" So this was this part of Russia called the Valdi, a very kind of hilly, swampy area of Novgorod. I'm probably saying it wrong. It's a little bit south of there. Novgorod. How do you say it? Yeah. So this is actually one of the oldest cities in Russia. So Marie helped her brother to manage this estate that he had there. And what she did was she set up a hospital that worked with homeopathic remedies and a vegetarian diet. So I thought that was interesting. And she also provided emergency aid to refugees and set up a Sunday school for the village children. But interesting enough, the population, met these two rich idealists with a certain distrust and rejection even. So, they were confronted with all kinds of, the folk had their own traditions and such. And so really the only thing that really took up was the Sunday school. They appreciated the Sunday school. And it was at this time that Marie had a serious accident. She fell down a staircase and had to stay in bed for weeks. And not long after that, her brother died. And so she had to return to her family in St. Petersburg, and she was 25 at that time. So a new crisis awaited her at home when she announced that she wanted to go into the theater. She was determined. She was going to go into the theater. And of course, in her family atmosphere, this was unthinkable to them that a young woman of good standing would want to enter that, gypsy world. And you see here in the slide, the French actress, Sarah Bernhardt. She was at the height of her career then, but Marie went off to Paris to study with Marie Favart. So that was actually Sarah Bernhardt's sort of rival. But Marie Favart, she actually was one of the last ones to teach this. She held these living remnants of the old eloquence, right? What they called elocution, right? This true art of speech. I could use a little right now, I think. But it was interesting. Like, it all came together for her. Like, right away, she just had started this training, and by this stroke of fate, she was offered the leading role in Frederick Schiller. Remember, her grade school teacher called her a little Schiller. She was offered the role in Schiller's play, The Maid of Orleans. So she was to play Joan of Arc. But the producers wanted her, they thought that her voice needed some training because it still had this sort of Slavic softness to it. And so they wanted her to get voice training. She didn't really like that idea, but what made it even worse was that they suggested that she might pay unchaperoned visits to the theater critics. Well, that was a deal breaker. Marie von Sivers, she was always very private and very, very modest. So, wow, yeah, here it was, 1899, the end of the Kali Yuga, when Marie von Sivers was 33 years old. And so she broke away from all of her previous striving, and this really opened her up to her true destiny. Right at that time, she met and started working with the playwright and theosophist Edouard Schuré. And it was through him that she heard about the German Theosophical Society and Rudolf Steiner. So the story goes that Marie von Sivers, quote, appeared one day at one of Rudolf Steiner's early lectures. So this is, 1900. And on November 17th in 1901, she posed the question to Steiner, quote, would it be possible to create a spiritual movement based on Western tradition and the impetus of Christ? All right. So this was a milestone event, because we know that the Theosophical Society was very much immersed in the Eastern occult traditions. So Rudolf Steiner later reported in his autobiography, quote, with this question, I was given the opportunity to act in a way that I had only previously imagined. The question had been put to me, and now, according to spiritual laws, I could begin to answer it. So after that, Marie von Sivers and Rudolf Steiner pretty much became inseparable. The Theosophical Society asked Steiner to become the leader of the German section, and he agreed to do it only if Marie worked with him. So I put together a few slides. There's so many wonderful pictures of all the things, all the things that they did together, right? She was always at his side, whatever he did. So, I mean, if we had longer time, we could talk about all of these, what these all mean. Here's one, they're going to Norway on the boat and working with the children. So yeah, she was involved in every aspect of anthroposophical activity, responsible for all the practical organization. You know, she's standing beside Rudolf Steiner in all the inner, esoteric, and ceremonial matters. She accompanied him and helped him as a secretary, translator, editor, organizer of his lecture tours, and other public activities. You know, she assisted Steiner's work with her own resources, right? So her family money went into supporting the Anthroposophical Society. Well, wasn't called that yet, but so in as early as 1908, she founded the Anthroposophical Press, which has a German name, which I didn't try to say. And so, you know, over the years, she edited over 500 publications, as well as, you know, she wrote introductions and explanations for them as part of the publishing of Rudolf Steiner's literary estate, which he signed over to her in his will. So much. You know, she is you know, most known for her great contribution to the renewal of the performing arts, right? Eurythmy, speech, drama, all of which became the reason for building the Goetheana. And starting in 1912, the act or the art of eurythmy was developed by Rudolf Steiner. And under Marie von Sivers' guidance, it developed into three directions. As a stage art, that was her specialty, but it was also worked with as an integral part of the Waldorf pedagogy and as a therapeutic method. So that was all stuff that she brought to it. And she gave poetry recitals as introductions to many of Steiner's lectures and assisted him in the development of the 4 mystery dramas. We see her in costume here. And she played a lot of roles in the plays, and including, of course, the leading role of Maria, which many believe was modeled after her. And with her help, Steiner conducted several speech and drama courses with the aim of rising those art forms into spiritual heights. And on Christmas Eve in 1914, Marie von Sivers and Rudolf Steiner were married. And he presented her with the Stars Once Spoke verse on their anniversary in 1922. And if you ever get a chance, there's a book of their correspondences, and it's just amazing to read their personal letters. I mean, they wrote to each other if she was on tour, or if he was on tour. You know, they were together most of the time, but when they weren't, they wrote to each other every day. And to read those, the sense of humor and the intimacy is just, you know, and they're like, they actually complain about people like they're actual human beings. You know, it's really interesting to see their relationship in that way. So yeah, Marie Steiner-von Sivers collaborated with Steiner for the rest of his life and carried his work beyond his death in 1925 until her own death in 1948. And so what was really interesting to me was I picked up this little booklet it's called Marie Steiner, Her Place in World Karma by Hans Peter von Manen. And we hear that when Steiner was still alive, that around the time he was writing his autobiography, right? So this was appearing weekly in Das Goetheanum. And one time they were in Stuttgart and they were visiting Emil Molt, founder of the first Waldorf school, and they were hanging out, and Emil Molt asks Frau Dr. Steiner, well, is she going to also bring forth some of her biographical essays? And Rudolf Steiner responded to this by saying, oh no, it would not be possible, because she was, quote, a cosmic being. And other translations of that event, or other people had heard Steiner speak about this and say that he called her a cosmic being. He said a cosmic being was indwelling in her. Wow, I don't know about you, but I have been pondering that for years. And in the third scene of the first mystery drama, The Portal of Initiation, we learned that the character Maria, who again, some say was based on Marie Steiner's life. So Maria, she's the top pupil of the spiritual teacher Benedictus. And she had reached a point in her development where it's revealed that her spiritual light is so strong that it actually starts to have a destructive effect on some people around her who can't handle the high vibration. Her good deeds, based on her schooled insight, have started creating negative consequences in the world around her, affecting even those she deeply loves and strives to selflessly serve. So she's overwrought with this, right? She's working so hard, and this is what she sees. And so she goes and she asks Benedictus, the spiritual leader, how could this be? And he reveals the source and unique nature of this issue. So I put here the passage, and I don't think we really have time for me to read it. So I'm just going to invite you to go to the Portal of Initiation and read this scene 3 for yourself. But I guess I'd just like to say in my own words that we can understand what's happening here as a kind of reversal. The concept that what is good in the spiritual world becomes reversed on the physical plane. So in this little monologue here, Benedictus is really saying that the spiritual world asked him to find someone worthy to be the vessel of a mighty spiritual being, so that it could carry out a lofty mission for humanity on earth. So he looked around, who's around, and he saw Maria and he picked her. And that the effect of such a high spiritual being is like a holy fire, right? This fire can ripen the souls of those who are ready to receive it, but it also can burn. That fire can burn. It burns away the dross, right? Which feels like a death process, which, come on, friends, be honest. This is not always a pleasant experience, especially for those that aren't ready, right? Or who hold an antipathy to the light. A lot of people were very jealous, or they just didn't understand, so the character of Maria's indwelling, it really makes me think of the ultimate example, right? We can see this in how the cosmic Christ could only stay in the body of Jesus of Nazareth for 3 years before it completely would burn up the human vessel, right? And that this is the real true meaning of the prayer in Gethsemane, that, the prayer that, the Christ needed to stay long enough in the body to finish the deed on Golgotha. So, it was a hardship to have a spiritual being within you. And of course, it's not obviously the same thing with this indwelling spirit, but we can see some similarities here, and we can look at Marie Steiner-von Sivers' biography and see that she did indeed suffer many unexplained health issues, which we can attribute to this indwelling. It was hard on her body. And yeah, people were either really devoted to her, they loved her, they revered her, or they were put off by her strong spiritual light and had a great antipathy toward her. So we get this, we see this in her biography. So yeah, unfortunately, many folks in the Anthroposophical Society were either blinded or burnt by her great light, seeing only its strict harshness and not the great sacrifice that it was. So it really came clear to me that's what was going on here. And yeah, there were, of course, many other factors around the tensions that arose having to do with the constitution and the karma of the members of the society. So, again, this is a topic for a whole nother lecture, but, the old souls that were coming into theosophy and such, in theosophy, reincarnation had really kind of taken on a very Luciferic tone. So they were taught by Rudolf Steiner to counterbalance it by, it was really just like, it's forbidden. We don't talk about these things. So that's how they counterbalanced it. And usually it was only, they were only given indications about their karma by Steiner when they were past 70 years old. But the young souls coming into the society after 1920, they had a completely different orientation, right? Steiner gave them indications for their karma to help them find their vocation right away. So just to mention, these differences were not able to be reconciled before Steiner died. And so provided a core crack in what led to the division within the society in 1935. And of course, there's a whole slew of factors involved in that tragic break, which, to be honest, we're still experiencing today. Again, this is a whole nother discussion. But yeah, my question that we can contemplate is, we're contemplating this individuality that we know as Marie Steiner. So we can ask ourselves, who was this cosmic being that needed to come into the world? So I've listed some of her earlier incarnations to kind of give us maybe a little clue. But to me, it seems clear that it was the heavenly Sophia who was preparing to live among human beings as Anthroposophia, born in fullness at the Christmas conference, after having gestated in the sheaths of Marie Steiner-von Sivers. So those are my thoughts on that today, which I think I'll go further into on her birthday on Monday, and maybe I'll put that on my podcast, which is called I Think Speech. So yeah, just gonna stop that for now. So, a lot to take in, right? What an interesting human being. And so maybe we can, I don't know about you, but I feel her energy is circulating among us right now. And a little piece of her lives in all of us, I think, because of this, how she held this preliminary being of the divine Sophia, so that we could cultivate the Anthroposophy within ourselves. And so now maybe to move us into our limbs, should we call in Nancy, or do we want to go into breakups? What do we want to do? What do you think, Nancy? Go ahead and unmute.
How much time do we have left? It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We've got some time. I loved your breakout question of what woman has influenced you. I really do love that. What woman has influenced you in your life? And we don't have to take long, because I do have a little speech exercise for us and a little paper exercise for us at the end.
Great. So how does that sound, folks? Well, we can go into the breakouts and yeah, we can think about somebody in your life, a woman who was influential, somebody who brought you a gift somehow that helped you to achieve your destiny.
Let's do it.
Does that sound like something to do? Or do we need time to work with our hands before we do that? I mean, so I'm wondering if people feel ready to jump in. Lark is shaking her head no, she's not ready.
Lark would like to work with
Yeah.
her hands so that her brain can be thinking.
Okay.
All right, let's do, that's what I think. That's what
Let's
I'm
do
feeling.
that then. Okay, you're gonna need your paper, your astral scissors. And make of your paper a square. So
So to do that, we're what are we doing here? We're putting it on.
what we're doing is
Yeah.
we're going to take ourselves, our physical selves, our paper, and we're going to fold it. And you're going to turn it into a rectangle, so you can either rip or cut the little extra bit off so you get a square. So our physical selves today as a square piece of paper. And what we're going to explore is Marie Steiner's presence on the stage. And for those of you who have done stage work, performance work, lecturing, holding a class, these aspects of our being will, this is a little tiny exercise as a way to bring us physically with our fingers and our artwork through that process. So what is that like to stand on stage and hold an entire auditorium? What is it like to stand before a class? What is it like? What does it do? So here's our physical body. We're going to do one more fold. So we have another triangle. I'll open it up again just to show you. So the square is folded in half and in half again. Yeah. I'll show you again. The square is folded in half and in half again. Hang on to this tip, which is the center. Yeah. And make a little mark there, because you're going to want to know that this is the center rather than these other points. And then what is it that the etheric does? It molds it. The etheric forces mold and shape us. They form us. We've molded and shaped our paper into this triangle. And now we're going to take our astral scissors, which cut and shape and refine our form a little bit more. Now here's my point that I know is the center of my paper is at the top. Now I'm going to come in from the side and cut not all the way over, but almost. Yeah, just
Does it matter which side?
does not matter which side, because we are then going to alternate sides and cut from the other side. Cut almost all the way over. Now, if you're really fine and delicate, you'll create something that's just a little fiddly. So be a little bolder, a little larger in your cutting. Mine are easily a ½ an inch between each cut. And so we're going to alternate, coming in from one side and then coming in from the other side, each time never quite cutting through. Does that make sense? Here we go. I'm going to cut again from this side, and I'm stopping about a ½ an inch from the edge. This is kirigami, similar to origami, but the Japanese art of paper cutting. Yeah, alternating each side until we get to a last cut near the bottom. You have a shape that begins to expand. You're right. Now you have the fiddliest part, which, if you know from being a performer, you can have this nicely, tightly controlled and warped into itself routine of your lines or your form or your movement if you're a rhythmist, but when you have to get on stage, you have to open up and be part, you have to open up to your audience. Yeah, so let's open our shape up. Let's open up to the world. And this is a bit fiddly, just like it is on stage. It's a process. Take your time. Yeah. And then if you hang it from the top, pinch that little top place and pull it down. And you have what my children's or kirigami books used to call a pagoda. A pagoda shape. And it should open. Oh, mine keeps holding it onto the other side. I've forgotten my lines. I'm going back to my script. There. So this, imagine this is you. This is you in front of your class, in front of your stage, in front of your microphone. You're opened up to the world. And then if you can take a piece of tape and just tape it somewhere so it hangs open. But I suggest that you take your scissors, poke a little hole in there. And I didn't ask you to go get string, but you can get a little string, a little piece of string, tuck it through that hole, tie it off or tape it so that this little pagoda can hang, and hang it in a doorway. Hang it somewhere where the wind or the breeze blowing through your house or on your porch, wherever you choose to hang it, somewhere where it will be caught and moved by what's around it. And there you have a little paper example of what it's like to open up to your audience and be moved and dance with the energy of your audience to move around. This is a mobile now. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
Enjoy. If you do it too thinly, you get one that's really immensely long. I did that one first thing this morning just to try it out. Too big. And then if you do it too thickly, it's a little funky, but they work. a picture of that openness that it takes to hold an entire auditorium and to work with what comes to you from the environment. There you go. Oh, you lost a couple. Well, that's what tape is for.
An absolute failure. I did not understand this at all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah,
hopefully it got into your hands so that now we can go into the breakout
there you go.
with and explore that.
Try again. Oh, there's a beautiful one. Yeah. Oops, I need that
Yeah.
join again longer, Hazel. Can you give us the breakout rooms again? Thank you.
You want to join? Pause. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Oh boy, the room is full of all these influential women. They're all with you. I can see them. It's a good thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We lost Nancy.
We were talking here. Huh?
We lost Nancy.
She came in and we had a little conversation. So, and we were communing with those on the other side and had our own little session here. So, yeah. Well, welcome back. Oh, Nancy, our Nancy. Oh, okay. Yeah, she was having some problems earlier. Okay.
Yeah, it
Well,
just seemed
that's
like a
fine.
technical issue. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to show, Kelsey was asking, this is the book that I referenced in the thing I talked about today. It's a really small little volume, but he's the one who, really is looking to, I don't know, bring some perspective in a different kind of perspective than a lot of people. And of course, there's this book, which is really great as well. This is the one that you mentioned, Kelsey. And it's just fascinating. And this is another favorite. That's a newer version of some folks working. And it's a lot about her biography and a lot about her past lives and the connections and such. So that I really recommend that. Just the way that we can think about the progression. And when we look at this idea of this cosmic being, I don't know, that just fascinates me. And I think about how you look at her past lives and you look at what happened with Albertus Magnus, right? He was they talked about when he would do a lecture or when he would give a sermon that people would just fall down dead. So that really made me think of kind of what we were talking about, And, of course, we know what happened to Hypatia. And there's a whole big history there around the successor of Aristotle as well. He was, when Aristotle died, he died the same year that Alexander the Great died and left all his papers and everything to this to his successor, who took. So it really makes me think about, with Marie Steiner, like originally they only wanted to publish the books. And, then it was like, oh, we're going to start to publish the lectures. And then, oh, we're going to start to publish this. And it was like this thing that happened that, Steiner really didn't want. He wanted that to sort of come later. And so the successor of Aristotle had that same idea, that only the books, only the public stuff would come out, and then the private stuff, the more esoteric stuff, the stuff that was more connected to nature would come out later. And then he assigned his successor, but then after he died, they didn't take his successor who had received those orders. So somebody else came on, and so those held back manuscripts around nature and stuff never got put out there. And so a lot of them were destroyed. And then we had to discover Aristotle through the Muslim influence, which whole other story. But it's just fascinating to look at, these parallels with when we have these reincarnations, these unfinished things that happen. We have to sort of carry them into the next phase, right? So anyway, you can see how it's just living in me so strongly, and I'm just so grateful. Anybody want to share about their experience with their influential woman that they talked about in the breakout?
I'll go. I talked about my grandmother. My grandmother was a very sweet, loving, gentle woman, and she just embraced everyone she ran into. She just accepted people for who they were. Didn't matter what the essence of that was. She believed in the goodness of everyone. And actually, I mentioned that her brother didn't get along with his wife, and they eventually got a divorce, but she wouldn't uninvite her sister-in-law. She always invited both of them. And it was a real struggle for her, because when her brother came and he saw his wife was there, he would just walk away, and she'd go after him and say, wait. But she really strongly believed in relationships and family and in people. She believed in people. And she believed in me so much that when I was, we all go through the jerky teenage, who am I thing into your 20s. And I wasn't sure what direction I should go or how I should be or who I was. I borrowed her belief in me, and I wore it like a cloak until I grew big enough to fit it, until I could, become. And it was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me.
Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I can just picture that. Thank you for that image. Our time is short here, and I think what I'd like to do is to ask you to stand up, and let's all do the hallelujah. Let's dedicate a hallelujah in eurythmy to Marie Steiner-von Sivers and all these women that we've called up and have been working with us today, and all the women in history who have been able to help us be who we are.
What if you
So
don't know what the hallelujah is in eurythmy?
Oh, okay. Well, it's a eurythmic gesture, and we don't have time to go into all of that. But the cool thing about eurythmy is you can.
Could somebody just say it as we do it, like step forward or?
Yeah.
What?
Well, you know what? I think I'm just going to do it, and you can just imitate. Yeah, I really don't like when people talk during the hallelujah. I feel like it's disrespectful. And I'm not a eurythmist, so I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. So let's just do it with a spirit of reaching from where we are now into our future selves, and thanking our past selves and all those that have formed us, and bring it with that intention. Thank you, friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hazel.
See,
Thank Nancy for us.
yeah, Nancy. We'll
Thank you,
see you
Hazel.
next week. Thank you. On St. Patrick's Day. So we're all going to be Irish next week, right? Thanks for being here. Peace.